40 runs. I mean, but yeah,
It's almost something like that.
Yeah, I mean, they've got a good lineup. You're gonna be here. I was thinking about getting a sandwich and eating it at Kimo's, but I said probably not. I've had to talk with my mouth full.
So, Calvin, y'all basically need a letter from me? Is that what that letter is?
Yeah.
Done deal. We'll get it out there.
Which one? I've met Greg. For that subdivision. And the red ribbon thing. What? That's true. We only had, I'd say we had 20 speakers.
I met him today, Jeff.
18 of them.
Yeah, I know he's been looking.
20? Yeah, the planning commission. 18 of them were from Aldi.
Different guys, different people.
Two from Aldi. A lot of them just stood up and said, look, I'm just against it. Sat back down. Yeah, it's also the first phase is.
You can't only eat one of those about once every 3 or 4 months, though.
And they're asking for no.
It's good. Their breakfast is great, too.
You know, the county's going to give us.
He likes what?
A huge order country.
Yeah, they're really good.
Yeah. It's not illegal. You can do that. Wild bits. Maybe he did.
For breakfast, they are. Yeah, they're probably open till 2. I think they're open till 2 then.
I don't like him. Says he doesn't play for the Braves. I don't like him.
No, it was.
It was a wild pitch. Yeah.
We have 45 seconds, just letting you know.
That probably didn't happen all year. It's probably the longest meeting you've ever been to. He says they're hugging you out about 10, 15 times.
I ain't got nothing to do.
11.
I'm trying to get this
48.
mint out of my mouth before we get started.
What?
Yeah, before we had an alcohol control board, the city manager at that time told me we had all the violations and wanted you. So we had like 14 violations.
5 seconds.
Every single one wanted to happen here. So we got out of there at almost midnight.
Good evening. I'll call this meeting of the Cartersville City Council to order. Like I said, I'll call it to order. If you'll please stand for our invocation and pledge.
Let me pray. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Cartersville City Council meeting. Let us bow our heads while I pray. Our Father, which art in heaven, once again we assemble ourselves in the seat of government of Cartersville, Georgia. We ask you for wisdom, understanding, courtesy, and politeness in our discussion. We ask you to guide us and direct us in the decisions made. We ask these blessings and all blessings in your Son, Jesus' name. Amen. Amen.
We are honored to be joined this evening by the Metro Atlanta Young Marines. They are going to lead us in the pledge.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That was nice. Just drink the roll, please.
Carrie Hodge, Ward 1. Here. Jay Stepp, Ward 2.
Here.
Carrie Roth, Ward 3.
Here.
Calvin Cooley, Ward 4.
Here.
Gary Fox, Ward 5.
Here.
Pat Friend, Ward 6.
Here.
You never ask if I'm here, but thank you, Julia.
Mayor Santini.
I'm here. The first order of business is to approve the council meeting minutes from our October 5th meeting. Council, you've had an opportunity to look these over in advance of this evening and had the chance to make any notes of any corrections, if any are needed. Now's the time to note those, and if there are none, a motion is in order.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
And the meeting minutes are approved unanimously. We are, as I mentioned, honored to be joined by the Metro Atlanta Young Marines as part of Red Ribbon Week. And I have a proclamation that I'm going to present for this, and I'll read it here. It says, whereas communities across America have been plagued by the numerous problems associated with illicit drug use and those that traffic in them, and there is hope in winning the war on drugs, and that hope lies in education, drug demand reduction, coupled with the hard work and determination of organizations such as the Young Marine of the Marine Corps League to foster a healthy, drug-free lifestyle. Whereas governments, community leaders know that citizen support is one of the most effective tools in the effort to reduce the use of illicit drugs in our communities. Whereas the red ribbon has been chosen as a symbol commemorating the work of Enrique Kiki Camarena, a Drug Enforcement Administration agent who was murdered in the line of duty, and represents the belief that one person can make a difference. The Red Ribbon Campaign was established by Congress in 1988 to encourage a drug-free lifestyle and involvement in drug prevention and reduction efforts. Now, therefore, I, Matthew J. Santini, Mayor of the City of Cartersville, do hereby recognize October 23rd through 31st of 2023 as Red Ribbon Week and encourage all fellow citizens to join me in showing support for a drug-free environment. I'll be honored to present this to you folks right down here. We'll do what's called a grip and grin.
You can have them all.
Thank y'all for being here. You want to say anything? Okay. You want to present that? Thank you. We're delighted to have y'all with us. You're welcome to stay as long as you like. But if you don't want to stay, now's a good time to get out. I'll give you a few minutes if you want to get out and enjoy your evening.
I'm staying.
Yeah, Bob said, get out.
All right, Randy, get us started with T23-04, please.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This case and the following zoning case are directly related. The first one is Switch's application where they're proposing a new technology park or technology zoning district, which will allow the development of a data center. With that, it includes standards, setbacks, buffers, additional noise standards have been included also. With that, the Planning Commission did review the proposed text amendment and the addition of the Technology Park District, so there could be development of a data center. And with that, they did recommend approval of the text amendment. And with that, there were some additional changes. I believe y'all may have got a copy of a noise ordinance. Since that time, they wanted some additional changes that actually clarified enforcement and penalties for violations of that noise ordinance. Y'all should have a handout up there On the front side of it would have the changes that were added to take Planning Commission's considerations and add them to that document. And with that, again, they did recommend approval of the text amendment with the changes to the noise ordinance. Since the Planning Commission hearing and that recommendation came from them, the applicant has provided additional standards for lighting. They're not incorporated with it. We do have copies of their dark sky standard that they would add to the actual text amendment to that zoning district. We'll incorporate it in the full document when we move on to the second reading, and we'll leave you a copy of that this evening. But that also has been changed since the first reading. With that, I'll turn it over to the applicant.
Any questions for Mr. Menino at this time? And Randy, if you would be so kind as to get me the list of people that signed it. Oh, you have it already? Thank you, Julia. If you'll pass that down to me when you get an opportunity. The way that this operates by ordinance is the applicant will have an opportunity to make a presentation up to 10 minutes. Is that?
Minimum of 10 minutes.
Minimum of 10 minutes. And then from there, we'll have the public hearing where people can come up and speak. You're limited to 5 minutes each. I will tell you from a council perspective, we're here to listen. But the other thing is we're trying to get as much information in the record for us to consider in the process. So for instance, if I come up and I talk about the sky being blue, having another person come up and tell us that the sky is blue doesn't plow new ground, for lack of a better term. So we want to make sure that the information we get is applicable to, that it's new, and we're not having to hear, it doesn't make it any better to hear something multiple times. And here I am, I've said that multiple times. So that being said, I'll call up Switch representatives to make a case or make their presentation. And if you would, for our clerk, as with all the people, even though I know you signed up, we'll need to get your name and your address as you address council and this room for our clerk, so she can record that accurately in the minutes. So thank you.
And Mayor, before you start, I did just want to add one thing, that this was a text amendment proposed by the applicant, not by staff. Just so y'all are aware of that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Brandon Bowen, 15 South Public Square, Cartersville, Georgia. I have the honor, real honor of representing Switch here tonight. And I say that not because just because I appreciate having a good client, but I am excited to be part of this because I think this is the most important rezoning that I am aware of in Cartersville history. This is an opportunity to create something in Cartersville that is really fantastic and a real boon to our community, to our government operations, our tax base, and to our school system. And it comes as an opportunity to do something that is in lieu of something that would be pretty burdensome for the city. And so I think it's fantastic for us, and I'm very happy to be part of it. That said, I first got involved, I had the opportunity to meet with Natalie Stewart and Stephen Roberts, the chief engineer for Switch. They came to my office to talk to me about a zoning, and they had a drawing that was similar to this one that you've got here, that when they were trying to explain what they wanted to do, and I said, well, here's an issue you have to deal with first. Okay, my house is on this picture. It's right here. You've got to convince me that this is the best deal for our community and for my neighborhood, or I can't take this case. And they were well able to do that. And I will talk to you more about the details of the project. In addition, Ms. Stewart is here to talk to you about who Switch is. Carl Luchins is here to talk to you about the nuts and bolts of engineering for the project. But I'm going to begin and just tell you kind of what my thought process was. So what they wish to do is buy the entirety of the back half of Carter Grove neighborhood. And as you all well know, Carter Grove was created in the early 2000s. Mr. Steve Stimson started that project. He untimely passed. Most of the front of Carter Grove is developed. The back half has not yet developed. Switch wishes to purchase all of the back half, which you see outlined in red there, and develop it for a data center. And I say develop it for a data center. There are a lot of topographical challenges on that property, and what Carl tells me, and I'll ask him to confirm that, is that probably, somewhere in the area of a half or less than half of the property is actually developable for Switch's purposes. And they want to begin on Old Alabama, which is that, what we're calling phase 1, is that orange section up near the top.
I'm gonna know, right now we're talking about the text amendment. Let's get the text amendment out, and then we'll go over the actual case itself.
Certainly, I just,
Because there are two separate cases, and at the next hearing, we'll be voting on two separate cases. One is the text, and the next one is the actual zone.
certainly, I will take that to be more direct. But the reason I said that is because when they told me they wished to do this, I looked at the city zoning ordinance, and there was no district in the city where this would be a permitted use, where a data center would be. And so we talked about, well, how can we make this, how can we do this? And I think the best way to do it is to create a new district, a technology district. And so, as Mr. Lovell said, what the technology district that's been presented to you, the text amendment, is something I drafted. And the way I did it is I took an existing city business district, because I thought it was most consistent, and then I pulled out the things that would be concerning, I thought, and put in the things that I thought Switch would need to operate. I also, I've had the opportunity to work on a very good technology district on the east side of the state, and they had a good ordinance for it, and so I did look at it, and I incorporated some of the things that I thought would be good to have in Cartersville. Because this is not the Switch district, this is the technology district. It could be adopted or rezoned for other property that Switch has nothing to do with. That was my intention, is to create a district that they could operate in, but which the city could use in other areas if it chose to. So that is the purpose of that. There have been a number of things that we've added to it. As Mr. Main told you, we put in specific sound restrictions. They are more strict than anything else in the city's code currently. The reason for that is you will hear there was some concern that data centers could be loud. Apparently there is a data center in Maryland, Virginia area that has caused complaints. And we saw a lot of concern about that out there. Now, you can Google to the end of the internet and not find any complaints about a Switch data center. I looked, I couldn't find any. My good friend Don Evans looked long and hard, and he couldn't find any, and he even admitted it to me. And Switch has never had a complaint about a noise violation, but we are so confident that they can live up to that standard that we proposed decibel ratings that would be more strict than what is in the city ordinance currently. And basically, I think this is some information that Mr. Hardigree found. I think what we're proposing is a decibel rating of 65 decibels at the property boundaries during the day and 55 during nighttime hours. And you see that's 65 is the sound of a normal conversation. 55 is closer to a quiet conversation. So basically what we're saying is not going to be able to hear anything on this property louder than somebody talking at the property line. We've also put in a number of traffic. We are willing to talk about a number of traffic things. Those are actually in the rezoning, so I can hold off on that if you like. We did also propose, and I did just send this in, a dark sky ordinance it would apply to any use in this technology district that basically is going to ensure that that area continues to look dark at night. Right now, if you look, I live right there, if you look south, it's dark. If you look southeast, you look over Lake Point, and it's got a glow to it. So the property would be developed in a way, and in this district would be developed in a way that requires that to stay dark at night. So that said, I think it would be good if I introduced Switch to you more, and so I've got Natalie Stewart here to speak in that regard, and maybe it would be best to have Mr. Luchin speak at the next public hearing in regards to the specifics of this project.
Yeah, anything that pertains to this text amendment addition we'll want to hear now, obviously. Anything that pertains to the project or the potential rezone, for the next one.
Yeah, well, so I think Ms. Stewart could go either now or then, whichever you feel be
Is
most
she going to
appropriate.
speak to the contents of the text amendment?
She's going to speak to who Switch is.
Okay, that would be more applicable, I think, in the next hearing.
Okay.
Thank you.
And Mayor, before you start calling the rest, I just want to reiterate what Mr. Menino just said. We do have 2 requests before the city council tonight. One is on the text amendment, which deals with the conditions that would be allowed in this technology district. If you want to speak on that, this is the time to speak about it. If you have issues about the proposed buffers, the height distance, the lighting, the noise, whatever is listed in this text amendment, this is the time to speak about it. The next public hearing will be about the proposed specific project switch. If you have concerns about them and the possible conditions that will be placed on that, that is the hearing that you will talk to about that. Those items do not need to be discussed during this public hearing. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
And Mr. Lovell is the timekeeper. There's a maximum of 5 minutes per speaker. As I mentioned before, feel free to be expeditious and be plowing new ground so that council gets as much information as possible. So relative to T23-04, anybody wishing to step forward and speak that is on my list here, if you'll please do so at this time.
Greg Blaylock. I reside at 426 Washington Boulevard, Dallas, Georgia. We are in the development on the southern part of the property, and we adjoin the southern...
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Did you sign in ahead of me?
Yes, sir.
You said your name was Greg. Can you tell me your last name? I didn't get it. Your last name.
Blaylock.
Blaylock.
Blaylock, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I see.
L-A-C-K.
I apologize for
All
that.
right.
Go ahead.
We, along with 40 other homeowners, we adjoin the southern property line, which is at the bottom of the sheet, which is also the Paulding County line. So in regards to the text amendment, I do appreciate the fact that now there is a noise ordinance that has been added in. That was a huge omission from the original zoning. That is very helpful, but I want to give a little bit of context to the decibel readings that we're talking about, because they can be generalized in a document like that, but decibels have different frequencies and different kinds of noise that have different impacts. And just as an example, right now, I took decibel readings on my deck that look out to these woods right now, and it's about 30 to 34 decibels, very quiet. When my air conditioning unit comes on, it goes up 35 to 37 decibels. And so that's very quiet. When my neighbor 2 houses down turns his pressure washer on, which he did just recently, we're talking 65, 70 decibels. And obviously a very annoying noise, but that is a short duration. What we're talking about now with 65 decibels, you can compare it to a conversation, but we're talking about a noise and a frequency that is 24/7, 365. Those units run continuously to maintain that building. And so you've got a noise level that is constant. And we do have 100-foot buffers, but sound carries at 767 miles an hour. It closes that gap like that. So we really do have to think about all of the residential properties that are around there that reside 24 hours a day often in those homes. And this noise is something that cannot be just dismissed and wished away because of the nature of it being constant. The other thing is we're talking about years of construction to build this in multiple phases. The construction noises will far exceed the noise ordinance. And that's a temporary thing, but we're talking about construction that can go on for years. So that is probably the bigger nuisance to the adjacent homeowners all the way around. and with the construction comes the dust, the noise, the interruptions. Dust when it's dry, mud when it rains. And so that needs to be considered in this for all your homeowners. And we do ring this entire property with residential that's been well established. We were here first. We think we deserve some consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lovell, is it in order and appropriate if I have a question for the applicant? Do I need to just hold that until a later time?
You
or
can
I
call
ask
them up whenever you want to ask them a question.
I guess, Mr. Bowen, if you'll come up, and if you need to call on somebody with the company to answer this question, then we can certainly do that with, again, with the, Mr. Blaylock's concerns relative to noise at the property line. I would assume that, I mean, if that's the noise at the property line, that the noise inside that building, if it's 55 at the property line or if it's 65 at the property line, I would assume that it would be exponentially higher on the inside of the building, or at least assuming so, if it were to ever hit that level. I guess my question would be, if I'm inside that building and I'm that close to it, is there hearing protection? Is the noise such that there's hearing protection required inside those facilities?
No. So, you know, this facility is like a really high-tech warehouse. Switch does not provide servers. They make a home for, you know, Delta, NFL, eBay, whoever, somebody who's operating a cloud-based system. Their information will be in their servers. The Switch provides a safe home for those servers. Inside, if you're in the room with a bunch of servers, you can hear those servers humming. It's fairly loud inside that room. You step outside that room and you're in a hallway, you can't hear it at all. If you step outside, you don't hear it at all. What you can hear outside is they have units that are designed to keep the temperature, HVAC units along one side, so big air conditioners that run, and on the other side, generally, of the building, they have generators. So they have to have redundant power. In the event of a snowstorm or a tornado that shuts down power, they have generators that they have to run to make sure that they keep power. They've been around for over 20 years and have not had a single nanosecond of downtime. Okay, they have to make sure that the computers work all the time. So those units, the HVAC units, the generators make some noise, just like air conditioners make noise. But they are designed to, and site designed to make sure that wherever the building is, they obtain the noise level that is permitted by the time it gets to the property line. And that's one of the benefits of having a property this size, because we can put in huge buffers if need be. We can put in sound attenuation equipment. There are any number of ways to make sure that the sound, you know, it stays within a permissible limit.
Thank you. That answers my question. All right, continuing on with the hearing relative to T23-04. Anybody else wishing to step forward and speak for or against may do so at this time. Yes, ma'am.
Lori Blaylock, 426 Washington Boulevard.
Thank you.
I also live in Senator's Ridge, the capital, in Paulding County. And while all of this district, the benefit is going to Cartersville, it's not coming to Paulding County. So that's one thing I'd like for you to consider when they're talking about the $66 million of annual tax base renewal. We're not going to see any of that. But yet I'm going to have a 450,000 square foot building 100 feet from my property.
Ma'am, we're talking about the text amendment right now.
Yes, and I'm addressing
your
that.
discussion is going more related towards the next request, which is actually where the building is gone. If
Okay.
you could just sort of keep it to the text amendment.
Let me rephrase it. In this district, any residential property that's near it needs a larger buffer than 100 feet. Because these buildings are so massive in scale, when you look at light industrial, you're looking at a smaller building. These types of buildings are never going to be smaller. They're always going to be larger. And because of the scale of the building, a percentage of that needs to be used as a buffer. Because not only is it a buildable buffer, these types of projects have security requirements, like the rock fields for spark arresters or for security. So not only do you have the footprint of the building, you have all the trees that will come down to accommodate those large footprints of those buildings. This is really not an appropriate use of this kind of land unless you have a much larger buffer to buffer everyone, not just residential, but any other businesses that might be near this type of district. Thank you.
Thank you. Continue with T23-04. Anybody wishing to step forward and speak for or against may do so at this time. And
Mayor, if there are no other speakers, the applicant does have a right of rebuttal on the request if they want to.
okay.
I think my only response would be in response to your question, so I think we're good.
Okay, right. Even better. All right, well, that being said, we'll close the public hearing for T23-04. This is the first of 2 readings. The next reading will happen at our first meeting on November the 2nd. And after that, council will take that up for consideration. So, Mr. Menino, if you will please introduce the corresponding request, the rezoning request Z23-03.
Thank you again, Mayor and Council. As you had noted, this is the actual corresponding zoning case. If you choose to approve the text amendment, this would follow as a zoning case to rezone to that Technology Park District, which is the applicant. Brandon Bowen is the representative for this application. It'll be accessed off of Old Alabama Road, approximately 1,950 acres. It's currently zoned PD, planned development. As you're aware, as was previously mentioned, it's a remaining portion that was not developed of the Carter Grove Planned Development residential facility. They're proposing the new Technology Park District if you choose to approve that. And the proposed use is data center. We did actually post this and advertise this in accordance with the requirements, and there appears to be no conflicts of interest. With that, as you're aware, Carter Grove first phase, or phase 1, phase 2 did develop. Approximately 428 lots were developed in there. There's an additional 330 lots that were developed as our park site at Grove Park that was not part of the original plan development. So they'll end up being a total of 750 lots total. Carter Grove, this property would have developed with an additional approximately 2,000 lots on it. With that, they are proposing the data center zoning category, which does have some protections in it if you choose to approve that. Additionally, the city departments did review this application. There were no comments that came back from our city departments. There were numerous public comments that came in via email and phone call. With that, David did try to summarize those comments in your package, and it did include some of the emails in there. But he did put together the theme of most of those. With that, the Planning Commission did conduct a pretty thorough public hearing on this. The hearing process went on for a fairly long time. They vetted the application exhaustively, and with that, they did recommend approval with several enumerated conditions. You do have a copy of that on your desk up there, and it was also included in the package. The reason I'm pointing that out is, with those conditions, there is one change that actually wasn't included with the Planning Commission recommendation. That would be to item number 4, where they're talking about public access. The main entrance will be coming off of Old Alabama Road. The applicant actually would prefer to add or have the inclusion and private access in there for additional reasons that they'll explain during their presentation. But again, with that, the Planning Commission did recommend approval with those 8 conditions that are included in your package.
Okay. Thank you. Are there questions for Mr. Menino at this point? Thank you, sir. I will now open up a public hearing for rezoning application Z23-03, and I'll call on the applicant for their presentation.
Brandon Bowen, 15 South Public Square, Cartersville, Georgia. In the interest of time, I'm going to start kind of right where I ended off.
Before Randy cut you off the first time?
Pretty much, yes.
By the way, I'm glad he did, but go ahead.
So we talked some about the sound issues. One of the things that we have done to try to address concerns is a traffic concern. Can we go back to that last slide? Carl, you'll get your chance. We have agreed to, right now, Carter Grove Boulevard comes to this property on the west side. Switch has agreed to not use that entrance. So it's a city road almost up to the property line. Switch would have no objection if the city wished to close it at that point. There is a lift station there, so we'll have to do something about that, but that's not Switch's concern. Then the main public entrance would be on Old Alabama Road, right across from my neighborhood, or not right across, but close to it. Bates Road is just to the east of that, and we have agreed not to use Bates Road, or Switch has agreed not to use Bates Road with a couple caveats. As you all know, GDOT is working on Old Alabama right now. Construction entrance would need to be from Bates. Mr. Lucius can probably explain that better than I can for the foreseeable future until that work gets done. But we have agreed that as soon as that work is done, there would be no construction access from Bates Road. The public access would be from Old Alabama at that main entrance. Now, Mr. Menino commented that we had requested that private access be retained on Bates Road, and that is simply because that southern half of that property is very hard to reach, and we don't need to create a situation where they can't get in to evaluate the property except by building a road from Old Alabama. But I have promised my Bates Road friends, and we were willing to agree to a condition that specifically limits that access just to, Switch staff that are working on the property.
And I think you had mentioned, I can't remember if it was an early meeting or something, that, also from a public safety perspective, that if there were need for police or fire or ambulance on that property, that it might be more expeditious to get them there that way at some point. That's certainly not relative to phase one, but at some point in the rezone, it may just make a little bit more sense.
Yeah, I thank you for reminding me of that. So we would not need secondary access for phase one. According to your city fire marshal's office, there may be emergency access needed along the Bates Road route for later phases, moving south on the property. And if we did that,
would be limited by number of vehicles, times of day. When you say there's going to be some type of agreement, what is the?
Well, we would live within the condition, and I ran the condition by people on Bates Road to make sure they were agreeable to it before submitting it. But as far as the emergency access, that would be by Knox box. I know you're all familiar with that. That's commonly done. All right. On that note, unless you have any particular questions for me, I would like to ask Natalie Stewart to come up and talk to you about who Switch is. And then maybe follow with Carl Lucius to talk about details of the project.
Good evening. Natalie Stewart, Senior Vice President of Government and Public Affairs for Switch, 150 Riders Trail, Ada, Michigan. Thank you for having me tonight. I just wanted to provide a little bit of information as to who Switch is. We are a technology infrastructure company. We're a co-located data center company. And what that really means is, when you store information into the cloud actually lives somewhere. Something actually helps run the internet, and that is Switch. So we have a variety of different clients under one roof. And what we do is we provide the power, the security, and the infrastructure for that gear to run. We are headquartered in Las Vegas, Nevada. We have a campus in Tahoe, Reno. The first state that we expanded to outside of Nevada is Michigan, which is when I joined the company 8 years ago. And a few months after we expanded into Michigan, we quickly announced that we were expanding into Georgia. And we have a campus in Lithia Springs in Douglas County. And that campus is about 100 acres right now. We are currently under construction on our 4th building. And what our business model is we like to be where there's population growth, right? It's all about how many eyeballs you can reach as quickly as possible, because when you are buying things off Amazon or Zappos, you don't want to see that spinning wheel, right? And so kudos to Southeast United States, but you have a lot of growth in this area. And Georgia is a very business-friendly state. And so our clients, their demand of wanting to be in Georgia and at our Douglas campus, we are essentially sold out. We don't have any more space to grow there, and we don't have any more actual data center space for clients. And so we were looking for more land, and we came across this parcel here in Cartersville. One of the reasons why we like having, I think it's a total of 1947 acres that we're looking to purchase, is because for us, it allows us to kind of future-proof the Georgia market for our clients, right? This is a project that we see developing in over a 20-year period of time, and it will grow in phases, but our clients are also deploying gear in different phases, and their timelines and their contracts with they're looking 5 to 10 years down the road. Couple other things that I wanted to mention about this project. The current master plan that's approved for this area is going to provide about 2,200 homes, and I think part of it is mixed use. Obviously, this is a very different project that we are proposing. Over half of the acreage will be left untouched. So that is going to be undisturbed land that will be there, and for us, it is a huge benefit because we really take into account different security measures. So we want to use the land and the challenges in the topography, along with all the trees, to serve as buffer and kind of security walls. So it brings that. It's going to provide a lot less traffic to the community. This project is estimated, our project is estimated to provide about 80% less traffic, according to a traffic study that I think you all have, versus 2,200 homes. What this is also, but let me tell you what it is going to bring. The gear that our clients bring into the environment is worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Like your laptop, like your phone, you're refreshing your gear every 3 to 4 years. And our clients are doing the same. And so what that is doing is it's bringing all the local taxes and that ad valorem tax are collected on that client's gear. And so for one building, if you go to the plan, for one building in phase 1 over a 10-year period of time, it's $66.8 million is the added tax revenue for just one building over 10 years. And that is, if you look at that, for schools, for the Cartersville schools, it is, trying to find the number, it's $35 million for your schools. It's added tax on the rolls for Parks and Rec, for the community, without the added burden on your infrastructure or the added headcount. Your superintendent of schools told me, he likes having, and the community likes having one school district, right? Like one high school that feeds into. If that planned development of 2,200 homes goes in, they would have to build another school already. And you have this beautiful new school in Carter Grove that I think currently has 1,400 kids, and it caps out at 1,900. So it provides a lot less strain on your infrastructure. At full build out, this project is estimated to be a $50 billion investment into the community. $50 billion. So it's just a lot of added value into the community versus what is currently planned for. The one thing that I did want to add tonight is I just wanted to thank the Cartersville community. because I've spent a lot of time here over the last few months talking and meeting to a lot of people, a lot of neighbors. There are some in this room that may not agree with the project, but I've taken the time to meet and go over things with them, and everybody's been really cordial and really kind. It's a very welcoming community, and that just shows the pride that everybody here in Cartersville has. And we're really excited at the opportunity to be here. You know, there are a lot of people that I've met that once they learned about who Switch is and what we want to do have become really supportive of this project. And so we're proud of how we build and, you know, what we add into the community, and we look forward to being here in Cartersville. And I'm welcome, you know, any questions that you guys have. So thank you.
Any questions for Ms. Stewart? Thank you.
Good evening, Carl Lugents, 114 Old Mill Road, here in Cartersville, Georgia. I'm the engineer that they have chosen to work on this project, and I'll have to admit, when they first called me, I kind of questioned this site. Our company does quite a bit of large industrial buildings, which a lot of people, my first thought was, hey, this is a large industrial building. In reality, the shape might be similar to a large building, but what they do is quite different. So as I started looking into it, I said, are you sure you want this site? I said, because, you know, there's quite a bit of terrain and topography. And the first thing that we see, and not to mention, there's as you see, there's blue lines that are on this map. And those blue lines indicate creeks and streams, which are environmentally protected. And they said, no, we realize that there's you know, these streams on the property. We realize there's a lot of topography. One of the things we want to do is one of the things we do is high security. One of the best methods of security is to be unseen, unheard. So I said, okay. I said that still there's still quite a bit of you know, work that you have to do to utilize this property for development like that. And so we started devising plans of a campus for their 20-year build out. What you see in orange was mentioned, that's phase one, and phase one has 3 proposed buildings, the first building being shown there. All the 3 buildings will subside on the orange area. It's 126 acres in phase one. There is 1,947 total acres, but out of phase one, there's probably only about 80 acres that will actually develop. A lot of their areas will be terrain that'll just surround the building or be between the drives and things like that. So, you know, with one of having the terrain was still very difficult for me to understand until really I understood what they were trying to do. And truly, they said, look, we want to hide ourselves. You know, we want to have a nice presence. We don't have a lot of traffic. We have very little trucks, really none, other than small delivery trucks that would deliver what Natalie calls gear, or Switch calls gear, which are computers after the facility is built. So we laid out this plan, and as you see on the first phase, and as Natalie was mentioning, you know, the amount of taxes that are generated just off the first phase is just one building, and that was what was presented. Imagine five phases of that, and the amount of taxes that would be generated for our community. So although these buildings may be the size, you know, of some of the industrial buildings that you see around, they don't produce smoke, they don't have vibrations, they don't have the things that you commonly find in light industrial developments or in heavy industrial developments. They are truly a different category. However, in the city of Cartersville today, their light industrial has a buffer of 50 feet, and we're proposing 100 feet. That was, as we mentioned, they wrote the ordinance. So we 100% believe and know that these uses are truly not an industrial use. They're very accommodating use for areas, and they are okay to be next to residential because you don't have the noises, you don't have the air pollution, you don't have the traffic, and you certainly don't have any trucks. So we believe this is a good site for this for those reasons. The entrance that we've been working on is an entrance off of Old Alabama Road. The project's extent is 1,900 acres, so it has several miles from one end to the other within this development. But the closest point that they would want access would be Old Alabama Road, even more so than Bates Road, because Bates Road has more of that residential feel. But their clients will fly in from all over the world and all over the country. They'll come in, they'll get on into the Atlanta airport 75, and they'll come right down to Old Alabama Road, and we'll be able to bring them into a very attractive entrance. These clients, want to know that their gear and their proprietary information is secure, and this is one of the ways we can do that. It was mentioned about the emergency access. Emergency access will be used obviously for emergency and temporary construction. I could probably clarify that. They're only interested in, as soon as DOT is finished with the area in front of the project to where we can develop an entrance, that, we're just asking for a small grace period to tie our driveway in after that point. Stormwater is something that we're very in tune to. We know that we have the creeks and the streams that we need to buffer. Therefore, when we were working through this, Switch asked me to actually increase the size of the detention ponds. They said double them. They said, we typically provide for the 100-year storm. They said make it the 500-year storm. We want to be extremely protective of any of the environment and not touch anything we don't have to touch. So there were a lot of good things that they brought to me, and I want to mention about sight lines. So this was just one of the sight lines, and what we talk about how Switch wants to be hidden behind the hills, and one of the reasons they enjoy the topography of this site. And this is just an example. It doesn't show obviously every single angle. But down on the right-hand side is the Old Alabama Road. And as you move your line of sight along the red line, to get to where the facility be, you have foliage and you have topography that would help hide these facilities so they're not seen. I'm not going to say that not going to be nothing, no part of them can be seen, but it'd be very limited. And any place that would be visible and not hidden by topography, we would certainly want to plant, and we will plant heavily to try to deter any kind of visual being able to see the facility. We can go to the next slide, the acoustics. And we talked a little bit about the acoustics. Just out of curiosity, I have a little meter. I'm not an audiologist or expert in sound, but I had a little meter as we were talking, and we hit about 85 decibels in here as we were just talking, from me sitting over there. So that, it was fluctuating 60 to 85. So that told me right there that was just it's a common conversation. They mentioned what are these things? These are that make sound. The building does not make any sound inside. What comes from inside the building, you hear nothing of outside. It is only the air handlers outside the building which is an air conditioner, like your household air conditioner. They are larger to keep the equipment cooler, and they do run. But we sat outside with one of the neighbors, and Switch has been very accommodating, because I've gone all over and met a lot of people that I didn't know here, but I've gotten to meet a lot of people, and I was able to go to their facility in Douglas County, and we sat outside right next to these, within 50 feet of these air handlers, and had a conversation with a group of people and one of the neighbors. It was even mentioned to us in another hearing that, it was quiet outside at the property line. Outside their facility, it was extremely quiet. And I also want to mention that they do have a facility in Las Vegas, to where the only thing that's separating their facility from a neighborhood of hundreds of homes is a street, and that's it. And to date, they have not had a single complaint to the city, and the NORS ordinances in Las Vegas are similar to the ones we have here, that we're proposing here. So with that being said, I'm here to answer any questions that you may have on the technical side for Switch.
So I have one quick question, or I have a couple of questions. The easement that somebody had through the property, am I saying that right? Did that all get resolved?
Yeah, so there is an access easement, there's a gravel road that goes up, and I'm gonna step down to it over here. There's an easement that comes off Bates Road and winds its way up through the property, project. And in the red box that you see identified here, it actually goes further into the property that we're looking at. And so we came up with a proposal to realign that easement so it would not be affected. And we've done preliminary engineering on that as well. And I've talked to several of the landowners that utilize that easement to make sure that we keep them in service and accessible.
Okay. And Switch is good with that?
Yes.
Found some common ground there?
Yes, so I'm sure there's still some things to work out, but the easement allows us to relocate the easement and keep them in service. So they're still working some details out, but we did provide a solution for them. Now where it moves a little bit left or right, that's going to be more up to the common ground that they end up with.
Right. Maybe, I don't know if you know this question or not, or this answer or not, but they're at Ward Creek. Do they have plans to cross Ward Creek?
Currently, we do not have plans to cross Ward Creek. I'm not saying that won't happen. When that happens, it's going to be probably what we call phase 4, phase 5. This is phase 1, so 10, 15 years down the road. And if you want to bring the overall map back up, we don't have a plan. So we want to stay on this side of Ward Creek as long as we can, and potentially in the future, it's possible that we would cross 15 years down the road. But we understand that that's a very sensitive crossing. Ward Creek is one of the creeks that we're trying to protect because it is a secondary trout stream.
Well, I understand that I believe from what the information that I have, that the subdivision was going to cross that, or if it was built out, it was going to cross that.
So if you want to go, yeah, so
whatever.
if you go back to the subdivision, one of the things about subdivision, and we want to talk a little bit about traffic. You've got 2,200 homes, which you're talking about, 20 to 30,000 cars per day traffic. But also what you can see is that they have there's several crossings across. There's a crossing across Ward Creek, but they have a major boulevard that comes all the way through this property. That goes from Paulding County. This is Crystal Mountain to Dabbs Bridge, all the way to Dow Ferry Road. So the amount of traffic that we would see there, that would be what we would consider like an arterial road, which is just under a highway.
I do want to ask, again, I was going to try to keep this in our pocket in the interest of time, but now that that's back up, there was one question. That proposed plan that we've been working off with, the 2,200 homes, given the topography challenges out there, what would ever be the likelihood that that would able to be built in that condition?
Well,
and again, I ask that knowing you're going to be a very short answer to that.
Oh, you want a short answer to it?
Extremely short answer.
Now, it would be, something like that would be built eventually.
Okay, now I have a question.
Okay.
So can you tell me how far from a residential home it is to where that building, the first phase building is gonna be? Rough.
700 feet.
The first house, probably, yeah, I'm going to say 1,000 feet.
And if you were to build phase 6 or 7 or however many phases you are closer to that property line towards Paulding County, you're gonna hold that buffer still, right?
That's correct. We have a 100-foot buffer now. Where the buildings would be, it's kind of unknown now until we science it all out.
And Carl, just to clarify for council, when y'all were talking about 700 or 800 feet from a residence, you were talking about a residence off of Old Alabama Road.
Yeah, 7 or 8. Well, the question was how close from a residential home in my to the building to the building, the first building we got shown there, and it's probably about 1,000 feet currently from the building we have shown there to any residential home, not residential property, but home. Yes.
Were those homes in Carter Grove or off of Old Alabama?
That home would have been probably those that are actually utilizing the easement at the top of the hill.
Okay.
Yeah.
And approximately how far are you located from where the residences are in Paulding County?
Yeah, a mile and a half, yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Lugents at this point? Thank you. Is there anything else as part of your presentation?
Yes. There was one significant addition that I made that I should have talked about. Anybody who lives over there knows that our connectivity is not very good. In River Shoals, it's hard to watch a Netflix show at night. One of the benefits of this project, and the reason for that is we just don't have a lot of carriers over there. One of the benefits of this project is it will likely bring every significant carrier to the site. It gives them a reason to be there because they want to be able to serve all these other customers, and because they're there, they'll serve us as well. There is a huge black hole there for connectivity, and this is the fix for it. So that's another good reason to move forward. And I know Switch has been in discussions with the city's fiber department, so Mr. Porter can probably speak better to that than I can, but I think it's a huge benefit for our area. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, just a side note, we've been going at about an hour now. It's going to be, if you need to excuse yourself for whatever reason for a period of time, please do that. I think we're going to do that instead of taking an intermission, so we'll just do this as we go, okay? So that being said, I'll open up a public hearing for Z23-03 and ask anybody wishing to speak for or against to step forward at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council members, my name is Harris Thompson. I go by Randy. I live at 219 Bates Road. I've been there for 27 years. I want to speak to the attention to detail that Switch has done to this point, and I call that extraordinary. Mr. Bowen, for some reason, decided that he wanted to come and talk to a couple of us on Bates Road, and so as a result of that, Mr. Lewis and I have spoken with the Switch people more than a dozen times, and I will say that they have been extremely responsive to legitimate concerns that we have. Everybody's got their own, you worry about what's going on in your backyard. Well, this is literally my front yard. And so they've been very receptive to our wishes, maybe more so than they want to, and I want to compliment them on that. Hiring Mr. Lugents, I think, was a brilliant move because he is like the rest of us. He lives here. This is his home too. And so between Mr. Bowen and Mr. Lugents, I'm confident that their representatives have our best interests at heart. It's really pretty simple. You mentioned the sun is, the sky is blue. Yes, it is. There's going to be a zillion less traffic trips a day. There's going to be millions and millions of more dollars that are going to find their way into our city coffers, our county coffers, our school system, with near zero impact to the school system. They're going to bring in a small number of very good jobs that pay a lot of money. They hire veterans, and so they're going to be great corporate citizens. I do not speak for my fellow Bates Road residents, but I speak on behalf of them to tell you that I am very enthusiastically in support of it. And this, I believe, is almost a monumental opportunity to have a change in the direction, because when I saw the map of the remaining 2,000 houses that are coming, and they're gonna build, and look, that's their right, the landowner's right, they have the right to do this, plus it's already zoned. And so, when I saw that, and I'm thinking about that ridge from Carter Grove down to Bates Road, and then from Bates Road all the way to the Paulding County line, right now it's dark, there's no houses up there. But if Carter Grove people are allowed to do what they have the prerogative to do, there's gonna be little 80-foot lots all along that ridge and throughout the remaining 2,000 acres. I see this as a much better solution on our behalf. I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak, and I'll...
Thank you for your comments. Okay. Again, we're continuing with public hearing Z23-03. Anybody wishing to step forward and speak for or against may do so at this time.
Mr. Mayor and council members, when I first heard of this, oh, I'm sorry. I'm Tom Lewis, 436 Bates Road. And I'm going to be there a long time. I've been there a long time. But anyway, when I first heard of this, I had a lot of questions. As Randy pointed out, we met with Brandon, and then a few days later met with Natalie, and then a few days later met with Carl, and we're back with Natalie. And so we had a number of meetings, and we had a lot of concerns. I had a lot of questions regarding what it was going to do and add to some of the challenges that we've had to face on Bates Road. I will tell you that they've answered every concern, and I, even up until explaining to me twice last night after 10 o'clock what they were doing. And because I kept saying, is this clear? They were forthright in everything they said. And from the beginning, when I looked at it, I thought when something is too good to be true, usually it's too good to be true. But I looked at what Switch brings to the community. I look at what they take from the community, and there's no comparison. When you look at what the opportunities that they have, and I say for the community, for the city, for the county, and what they will add to the school system and to our quality of life, and what we will be charged to have them here, it's really a no-brainer. And so I rise just to say that after numerous meetings, they've answered every question I've had, and I'm very impressed with them, and I certainly support what they've done and what their intentions are, and I think that it will be a great asset for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we go any further, again, we're an hour into this, and young Marines, thank you for being here, but you are dismissed. How about that? Mom and Dad were trying to get them out of here, and they just refused to move. Not going to leave their face. We'll continue on with Z23-03, and anybody wishing to step forward and speak for or against may do so at this time.
Craig Blaylock, live at 426 Washington Boulevard, Dallas, Georgia. One of the reasons that I'm opposed to this project is because they have not shared a master plan for the entire 2,000 acres. I'm an architect and planner by profession, and we analyze these things to look at the entire project, and all they will show is phase one, the first 126 acres over on the Bates Road side. I'm an interested party on the opposite side, on the southern border, and if I could see where building placements are proposed, it would give me a lot more to go on and give me a little bit more comfort in what could happen to me in the future. Because this comes down to residential property values, where this is not the kind of project that makes a good neighbor when one tries to sell a home. And there's 40 houses along that property line that are going to be negatively impacted by this development. There's no way that you can sell a hundreds of thousands of square feet of building that is directly adjacent to two-story homes, that's a good thing, that's a benefit. It's not. We moved to this area. Most of us moved out here for bigger lots and some peace and quiet. And this facility sitting here humming the whole time, because it has to, it's its very nature. And even though they're going to use night sky lighting, there's still going to be a tremendous amount of lighting because it's a high security facility. They're going to light it. They have to. And this is just not a neighbor that will help any of our property values. Residents, maybe on Bates and on the Cartersville side, will see some tax benefits from this. We will not. All we get is the disadvantages of it, and the sight lines and everything that have been shown coming up from Bates Road, well, that's terracing up the hill. We reside at the top of the hill, so we don't benefit from the screening and some of the terracing that's proposed in there. And frankly, they're only going to develop half of it because only about half of it is really buildable because of the terrain and all of the water. And that pushes it toward our southern boundary because our area is relatively flat. So it's going to be very hard to convince me that that's not going to end up being a building site. And then I'm going to have this in my backyard, and 40 others are going to be affected by this. So, and another thing that was mentioned in planning that hasn't come up tonight is the fact that the 1,900 acres you have, it can be leased or sold in 50-acre increments to other call centers besides Switch. Switch is a very sophisticated facility. We got to go tour it, and Natalie was good enough to let us go see it. And it is very sophisticated, state-of-the-art. And they're doing a better job than any of these facilities I've seen before. However, you sell a 50-acre lot to somebody else, they may not come in with state-of-the-art equipment. They can come in with a lot more conventional equipment that is louder. And yeah, there's an ordinance. And that ordinance had no teeth until it was discussed in the planning meeting that was necessary. So a fine structure was added to it. But face it, at $1,000 a day, that could be the cost of doing business for some of these facilities. So they could come in and be in violation of that and just pay the fines. And the homeowners, we just get the negative impact of that, and they just pay the fees and keep going on. So there's a lot of variables that have a lot of negative impacts for us. There are homeowners on all four sides of this. I just don't think it's an appropriate use. It would be much better on the Highway 41 corridor where you're developing all of that industrial, and there you wouldn't have any problems because it's all like-type buildings. So you just cannot convince me that this is a good neighbor to all of the residents that currently live there. And we cannot match the tax revenues that are being proposed here. But I can say that we vote. So keep that in mind too, please.
Thank you for your comments. Continuing the hearing for Z23-03, anybody else wishing to step forward to speak for or against may do so at this time.
Hello, I'm James Hardy. I live at 72 Bates Road Southeast. And for those that don't know, this is me right here. When you talk about how close they are, about 800 feet. Okay? That being said, my neighbors and I have been very concerned about this possibility and this development. My concerns at this point are heavily about the height of towers, which I've communicated to some of you folks. The sound, I understand that their facilities are pretty quiet, but as you see, I'm sandwiched between their phases, me and a few of my neighbors that are here. So while I hear that it's quiet, if you go up on the mountain currently, it is very quiet. I'm used to looking at a pretty black sky with lots of clouds and not much sound. So I am concerned about that. That being said, what I will say on a positive note is, one, I don't believe for a second that the Carter Grove development that was planned back in '05 or whatever will actually materialize. I don't buy that for a second. I live there. I know what the land is, and I know how difficult it is. Like my friend over here, I am also an architect, and I've been in construction for over 30 years. So my bigger concern is not the noise while they're present, but the construction is going to be a challenge for us. The sound, the dust, the disruption. All that being said, however, I do lean in favor of this facility because I do believe if they do what they say they're going to do, and Natalie, I'm going to hold you to that, then it could be a good thing. I think we could protect some of the natural resources, the animals and things, which are very important to me and my family, because I had been looking for land for 8 or 10 years before I found this piece of property. I have 24 acres there. I custom designed and built my own family home where I intend on dying. And I do not want to hear sound and see construction. And I also don't want to have houses around me that could happen at some point. I don't think it's an immediate concern, but I do think we should pay attention to the buffer zones, the tower potential. In the document, it states a variety of uses of other building types that could be in there. For example, radio stations, things of this nature with large towers again. I don't want to see that. I'm told that will not happen, and I want to believe that that will not happen. But I hope that you guys will help us all stay honest and compassion for those of us that are surrounded by it. But again, I do have concerns, but I am in support.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. I have a question for you, Mr. Lovell. If I have to ask the applicant, that's fine. It's my understanding this property is going to be conditioned to only allow for a data center. Is that a correct statement?
No. They are making, there's the text amendment that y'all are considering.
Understand that.
Okay. Allows about 20 uses in there. Their rezoning application is to go in that text amendment. And they have proposed, the Planning Commission and them jointly came up with various recommendations on there with respect to conditions to be imposed. None of those conditions say only data centers can be built on their particular property, which is subject to this rezoning. That doesn't mean they may not be, they might be willing to do that if you ask that question of them, but that is not a proposed condition currently.
Okay, thank you for the answer. I'll move on with Z23-03 and ask anybody wishing to step forward to speak for or against to do so at this time. And
is that the development you're talking about now?
yes, sir. If you care to speak and you've signed up, you're welcome to come up here, sir.
My name is Jack House. I live at 539 Old Alabama Road. Been there all my life. Was born on that place. I'm concerned about this development that's coming. It's going to be, the best I can tell, about a half a mile from our house, our home on Old Alabama Road. I'm concerned about the noise level, of course, but I'm also concerned about the environment. If you'll allow me to back up just a little bit, when Carter Grove first was being annexed into the city, I objected to it because of all the streams that's on that place. 3 of them which runs through our property, including Ward's Creek. Well, it's sad news because over 200 times I've had mud in my streams. Over 200 times, people. I've got pictures of it. I can prove it. I'm concerned that we're going to have another situation like that. And naturally that concerned me. Also, you know, I saw this, Ward's Creek is designated a trout stream. It also has a federally endangered species, the darter, Cherokee darter. There's also Eddywall darter, but I'm not sure about it. But in 2004, I was on site there when the University of Georgia made a study of the darter. And at that time, they found 7 darters. This was 2004. I asked for a copy of all that and I never did get it. In 2007, they made the same check in the same pool of water. They found 2 Cherokee darters. This was after Carter Grove started. This was after I had a lot of mud in the streams. And so that concerned me too. I asked them then, does that not tell you they're on the decline, that the environment needs something, you know, done? And they said they'd have to make an extensive study. So I asked for a copy of all that and I never got it. But it's just, whenever you take the undergrowth away from a stream, then you're going to have more volume of water. What that does is erode the sides of the streams, which I've seen that happen with the development, just with the first original Carter Grove development. And then your streams get wider, but they get shallow. No problem before Carter Grove of any stream being muddy on my property because it run out of the woods. It didn't have anywhere, it had leaf debris, but no mud. And like I say, I've got over 200 pictures. Now, why didn't I fight this? I didn't have the money to fight it, but I did get in touch with Cartersville Code Enforcement. They helped. I got in touch with state and federal agencies, environmental, and they helped, but nobody stopped it. So that is a concern I have with seeing this come in too. Now, I will go on to say this, you know, I hate to see the environment destroyed, but the way it was, somebody's getting some use out of it because they're building homes. That's a family situation, you know, where it appears it's commercial versus families. I know they've thrown some good figures out there and money talks, but I wish you would seriously think about the consequences. I'd like to leave a little bit of clean land, clean water for my children. I went down there the other day. I've got the date here in my pocket. Before Carter Grove, I used to go down there and feed the fish. Little fish, they wasn't big. I got absolutely no response. Not the first fish come to that. What does that tell you, folks? There's something wrong when that happens, and that's the environment. I'd like to, if we're gonna do anything with that land, develop it for families. People are more important than corporations. You know, and I know you're looking at a lot of money there, difference in the revenue, but think about your fellow man. That's you know what I'm concerned about. So I'd just like to thank you for the opportunity to speak up.
Thank you, sir.
To speak out, and I still to me, I've been there all my life, 88 years, born on the place, you know. I know the land they're talking about, and I know how far it is. I know what happens there's no way you can go and build without affecting the environment.
Sir, I understand, and I appreciate your being here. The timekeeper has just notified us that the 5 minutes is up.
Yeah.
So I appreciate your being here, and thank you for your comments.
Yes.
Sir.
Well, I noticed these other people didn't have a time limit, but I appreciate
the people that are making the presentation.
Yeah, I appreciate being able to voice my opinion, and
I appreciate that.
I'm country, and I'm going to stay that way, and I love the environment, and I love that country. Thank y'all, and
Thank you,
please
sir.
remember families versus commercial.
Thank you, sir. We will continue on with Z23-03. Anybody wishing to step forward, speak for or against, may do so at this time. And seeing none, I will close the public hearing.
Mayor, it is appropriate to allow.
Oh, that's right. I do apologize.
To have rebuttal if they wish.
you have opportunity to rebuttal.
I will be extremely brief.
respond to Mr. House's concerns. We are quite aware of the environmental concerns, particularly with Ward Creek being a designated trout stream. Switch was aware of that. When they first came to me, I recommended we bring Carl Luchins on board because I know he knows how to develop in Cartersville and Bartow County in a way that protects our environment. I understand the desire for homes. You know, I live right out there too. But as far as what will preserve the most area, this development will. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the course correction there, Mr. Lovell. Now I will close the public hearing for Z 23-03. And again, council will have another set of public hearings for both T2304 and Z2303. That will take place at November 2nd at 7 o'clock here in these council chambers. And after those public hearings, then council will take this item up for consideration, both of those items. So, thank you. I will take a couple minutes for those of you that don't want to, that came here specifically for this, so that you can move along with your evening. We appreciate your being here. I will ask, as you exit, the noise out there will impact our business here, and we're trying to get through too. So if you'll just, plenty of space downstairs to talk. Mr. Porter, you've got the next item. It is related to life and disability insurance renewal.
Yes, ma'am. This is an annual renewal for life disability through J. Milam with Free Street Cleaning. We've been with Equitable for 3 years. They have agreed to continue on at a 2-year rate guarantee, keeping the rate the same. I recommend that for your approval.
Any discussion from council on this item? If there's none, a motion's in order.
Motion to approve.
All in favor indicate by saying aye. We had a motion by Councilman Wren and a second by Councilman Fox and a unanimous vote. So we'll move on. Retiree medical insurance renewal.
Yes, sir. This is the United Healthcare renewal for retirees under the group Medicare Advantage plan for 2024. Is recommended for your approval.
Questions, comments, or motions?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Distribution, tree trimming, and clearing easement with Georgia Power.
Yes, sir. This is for a parcel we own near River Shoals, owned by the city. The gas department reviewed the easement, doesn't have any concerns. I recommend this for your approval.
Questions, comments, or motions?
Motion to approve. Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Mr. Dixon, you are up, sir. Good evening to you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. As part of the city's membership in the Gas Authority and to comply with FERC rules, the gas system is requesting the transfer ownership of an existing natural gas prepaid contract with the Tennessee Energy Acquisition Corporation to the Gas Authority. The logistics and billing associated with the contract will be handled by the Gas Authority until the contracts end in December of 2026. The city will, however, still realize the full discount amount for the remainder of the contract period, and council's approval of this agreement is recommended.
Thank you. Questions, comments, or motions?
Motion to approve. Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Next item, please, Michael.
Yes, sir. We are requesting the purchase of 2 towable air compressors that are used to power jackhammers, tapping machines, and other various pneumatic tools. The current compressors were purchased in 1999 and 2000 respectively and need to be replaced due to mechanical issues and parts availability. Quotes were requested and 3 were received. Yancey Rents of Austell, Georgia submitted the lowest quote of $48,000 for the 2 compressors. These are budgeted items, and council's approval to accept this quote is recommended.
Thank you. Questions, comments, or motions?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Michael.
Thank
While
you.
Freddie makes his move up here, Chair will entertain a motion to add 7 items to the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
7 items added. More quality time together. Go ahead, Freddie.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. We're asking for approval to move forward with a abatement by Azalea Environmental. There was some asbestos found in the mastic for the carpeting down at the electric department during our renovation. We're asking for approval to hire them to do the abatement.
Thank you. Any discussion? If not, a motion.
Motion to approve. Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Chief Carter.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I bring before you tonight a budgeted project. This is for 12 self-contained breathing apparatus. This is the breathing apparatus that firefighters wear going into a hazardous environment to provide them the breathing air. This is equipment that is for the 3 vehicles that are currently under construction. They'll be arriving in early spring. In order to beat the pending rate increase that we're seeing, and also with the long lead times, we're bringing this to you now. We have sought quotes. 2 vendors could provide us with this product. The low quote comes from American Safety and Firehouse, quoted at $87,600. This is within our budget. We do recommend the low quote from American Safety and Fire.
Thank you. Questions, comments, or motions?
Motion to approve.
Second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Atlanta Regional Commission payments. Mr. Forsyth.
Yes, sir. This is an annual payment to the Atlanta Regional Commission in order for the city to be involved in attorney-client privilege meetings regarding Corps of Engineers storage in Lake Allatoona. This item is split evenly between the city and Bartow County. The city's portion this year is $37,500. It's a budgeted item recommended for your approval.
Thank you. Questions, comments, or motions?
Motion to approve. Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Did you get that, Julia?
I got it.
Yeah. Next one, please, Cindy.
Yes, sir. The next one, as a member of the Metropolitan North Georgia Water Planning District, the city must adopt certain ordinances and amendments to those to remain in compliance with the district's water resources management plan. This is required in order to renew, expand, or request new storage in the lake or any EPD permits regarding the water system. This ordinance is a plumbing code amendment requiring low-flow fixtures as adopted by the district's governing board. The city is required, in order to be in compliance with this plan, to adopt that ordinance. This resolution is to be able to send this ordinance to the Department of Community Affairs for their review, and upon their 60-day review, it will be returned to us with or without comments, at which time we will bring you the ordinance for 2 readings to adopt.
Okay. Thank you. Questions, comments, or motions?
Motion to approve. Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Item carries unanimously. We'll move on to the added items, and I'll turn it over to Councilman Roth for the first added item to our agenda involving a resolution.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a resolution that I'd like to offer to council for approval, and I'll read the resolution. It's a resolution condemning Hamas terrorism and in support of Israel. Whereas on October 7th, 2023, terrorist group Hamas launched a surprise attack from Gaza on multiple civilian population centers in southern Israel. Whereas at least 1,400 Israelis, mostly civilians, were massacred by terrorists, including civilians brutally tortured and murdered in their homes, and youngsters gunned down at a music festival. Thousands more were wounded. Whereas the terrorists kidnapped and dragged into Gaza over 200 men, women, children, toddlers, and infants, including Holocaust survivors and foreign nationals. Whereas the United States State Department has confirmed that dozens of Americans were killed or taken hostage in these attacks. Whereas on October 7, 2023, President Joe Biden issued the following statement. The United States unequivocally condemns this appalling assault against Israel by Hamas terrorists from Gaza, and I made clear to Prime Minister Netanyahu that we stand ready to offer our appropriate means of support to the government and people of Israel. Terrorism is never justified. Israel has a right to defend itself and its people. The United States warns against any other party hostile to Israel seeking advantage in this situation. My administration's support of Israel security is rock solid and unwavering. Whereas the United States and Israel have long been close allies with strong bipartisan support, whereas the city of Cartersville, Georgia unequivocally condemns the Hamas terrorist attacks, stands with Israel's right to defend itself against the terror organization Hamas, and extend its unwavering support to Israel and all of its Jewish, Christian, Muslim, Druze, and other citizens. Whereas the city of Cartersville, Georgia unequivocally rejects anti-Semitism, let me state that again. Whereas the city of Cartersville, Georgia unequivocally rejects anti-Semitism and all other forms of racism, religious intolerance, and other prejudices, both here in Cartersville and around the world. Now therefore be it resolved that the mayor and city council of Cartersville condemn Hamas terrorism and support the defense of Israel. Resolved this 19th day of October 2023 in the City Council chambers.
Any discussion? If not, Chair will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
And motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, Mayor.
Dan, you've got the next, I think when we added this, this was listed as 2 items, but I think it's all under one, right?
It's 2 items, though you can vote it as one.
Okay, thank you.
One, Mr. Mayor, the first one is going to be adoption agreement amendment to the 1967 pension plan with GMEBs. And the second one is the adoption agreement for the 2017 pension plan. Both of them do the same thing where we've spoken to GMEBs. Basically, the assets we're going to transfer over is 75% of our current assets. We have about little over 24% that are illiquid. We're waiting to mature those assets, some of the investments we have. But this change will allow us to transfer over only 75%, which meets our minimum. We can meet that expectation. And that's my recommendation to have the mayor and city clerk and city attorney to sign off on this updated agreement.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion? If not, a motion is in order for both of those items.
Motion to approve both items.
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Next item, Dan, I believe you've got that one too regarding.
I think I'll have that one.
Thank you.
Mayor, this would be the 5th amendment to the closing agreement on 178 West Main Street. It's currently scheduled to close on October 30th. The individual doing that has requested that closing date be extended to December 8th. It is recommended by staff.
Thank you. Questions, comments, or motions?
Motion to approve. Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Next item.
Next item is a certificate of dedication and maintenance agreement for water and sewer for Everton Estates Phase 3. It is recommended by staff.
Questions, comments, or motions?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Next item.
Next item is a certificate of dedication and maintenance agreement for Cartersville Commerce Center for water and sewer, and it is recommended by staff.
Any discussion? If not, a motion's in order.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Last item.
Last item is a resolution which is denying a claim involving an automobile accident with a city vehicle from Green Legal Group LLC dated October 17th, 2023. It is recommended for your denial at this time.
Any discussion?
Motion to approve.
If not, a motion.
Second.
Motion second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Tom, everybody's been hustling through this just to get to your report.
If that's the case, I'm going to read it slow.
May not be here when you finish.
Honorable Mayor and Council, we'll be looking at the August 2022 and comparing to August 2023. And the general fund revenues increased by $914,000. Expenses increased by $508,000. 2 areas of revenue I look at on a monthly basis. Local option sales tax have an increase every about $633,000. And building permits and inspection fees have an increase there of about $122,000. The water and sewer fund revenues decreased over last year by $510,000. Expenses increased by $1.2 million. This is due to increased personnel expenses, increased operating expenses, decreased debt service expenses, increased capital expenses, and increased transfers to the general fund. In the gas fund, revenues decreased over last year by $3.1 million. Expenses decreased by $3.7 million. This is due to increased personnel expenses, increased operating expenses, decreased cost of purchased gas, increased capital expenses, and increases to the transfers to the general fund. In the electric fund, revenues increased from last year by $294,000. Expenses increased by $161,000. This is due to increased personnel costs, increased operating costs, decreased cost of purchased electricity, increased capital expenses, and increased transfers to the general fund. Stormwater fund revenues increased from last year by $16,000. Expenses increased by $50,000. This is due to decreased personnel expenses, increased operating expenses, and increased capital expenses. In the solid waste fund, revenues increased over last August by $304,000, while the expenses increased by $43,000. This is due to increased personnel expenses and increased operation expenses. And finally, in the fiber optics fund, revenues increased over last August by $18,000. Expenses decreased by $31,000. This is due to decreased personnel expenses, decreased operating expenses, decreased debt service expenses, decreased capital expenses, and increased transfers to the general fund. And our cash position for the month of August, unrestricted cash increased slightly, and restricted cash decreased slightly. And our SPOS accounts, we no longer have SPOS 2003, 2014 SPOS account balance is $231,991.10. SPOS 2020 balance, $10,259,836.46.
I would have liked to seen the cartwheel you turned once we got rid of that 2003 SPOS.
It was amazing.
That's, I'm sure, spectacular. Any questions for Tom? The report, Dan, you got anything to add to
Just
that?
one, if you look at year over year, pretty much every fund is in a much better shape. You'll notice in the water fund, that is where we're paying the building. We budgeted out of reserves, but obviously the water admin building is being paid for this year pretty much out of regular operating cash. So that's why the overall revenue or the expenses are a little higher than prior years, but that's just a one-time occurrence. And they definitely get a new building.
Okay.
Can I ask Tom that question you asked me?
Sure.
What is, when you're saying 23% of budget on the $632,000 increase?
When you look at the total lost revenues, it is, the August number is actually 23% of the total budgeted dollar amount for the year.
So 2 months into the year, we're
already at 23% after 2
Yes.
months? Gotcha.
Told you. I'm just kidding. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there any other business that needs to come before council this evening?
I think there's some light back there.
Picked a bad night to want to talk to us, didn't you? Your name and your address for our clerk, please.
My name is Nicholas Davidson, 907 Stonehaven Circle, Cartersville, Georgia. I am Program Director of Virtue Recovery Services, and I come tonight to formally introduce myself and our program. At the beginning of the meeting tonight, you guys, awarded the Junior Marines, and you acknowledged this war and stuff that we're having on drugs, and we're all aware of the effects that it has on family members and people in the community. And in the Northwest Georgia area, there's not that many treatment centers and places and resources for people to actually get help without going in toward the city to Atlanta and Marietta and other places. So Virtue Recovery House has been in operation since December of 2022. We're a nonprofit organization. We are a 2.1 level of care, sober living. We offer an IOP along with the sober living for men and women. And I'm looking for some kind of resources from the community and to see what part we could play in the community to maybe strengthen the recovery network here. I don't know if you kind of have some type of liaison you could put me in touch with to direct me or guide me to the place, but I come out of Marietta over here to be the director of this program, and I'm trying to bring as much positivity and anything I can into the community and grow and start some other meetings and try to get in working with drug court and the family treatment courts because I'm a person in long-term recovery myself. So I just come before you tonight to ask for your support and any kind of guidance or anything that you could point me in the right direction.
Sir, I would suggest you may want to contact the Bartow County Drug Court. I know they work with similar agencies to yours for putting in people through rehabilitation programs. You also may want to contact SSI Probation Services, who provides a lot of the local probation services for drug-related offenses here in the city and also Bartow County.
Okay. I do have a question as far as it comes for like human services and things. I know in certain cities and counties, they have certain funds or grants to help people in, or organizations to help people financially and to pay in for their treatments. Is there anything available in Bartow County as far as human services?
You can contact the Bartow County grant writers. Their offices, I think at the old courthouse, the new courthouse. They prepare all grants for both the city and the county, and if there are any grants that you're eligible for, they can review and look at those and provide you that information.
Okay. All right. I do appreciate it. Can I leave these flyers here with you guys?
Absolutely,
I
yes.
didn't know how many I needed to bring, so there might not be enough.
Well, make sure our clerk gets one, because she needs one for the minutes.
Thank you.
And I'd like to have one if you've got one to spare.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. And then the rest of y'all can fight over them. Why don't you just leave them up here and we'll,
I wasn't
that's
really
a,
sure how any of this stuff works before.
Right.
Well-
Reaching out and trying to be more proactive in the community and get involved and to know more things. So I probably will be around more often to try to learn a little bit more about the community and how I can be a better addition to. That's why I was saying if there's anything kind of events that you guys may have coming up in the city or of any type, reach out and let me know, because I can bring hands and people to help, put on these events, as volunteers, so we're willing to do anything we can in the community to be a part of.
we appreciate you being here. We appreciate you waiting out a long meeting to share this with us, and everything you said is very true. It's a very well needed service around here and in a lot of places. So thank you very much for being here.
All right, you're welcome. Good night,
Thank you.
y'all.
Good night. A couple of items before we depart. I promise I'll be quick. This Saturday, 9 o'clock, Pine Mountain, there is the Greg Anderson Memorial Hike that's being put on by the city and the Recreation Department. And I just wanted to note that. And anytime we could remember Greg and his contributions to our city, that's good. And then the Cartersville girls softball team advanced to the Final Eight for the first time in their school history. And they'll be playing next week in Columbus in the Final Eight of the state. So congratulations to them. So go Canes softball. That being said, any other business for council tonight? Chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I think 7 items out is a record.
Did everybody